Hi everyone, welcome to our video about the recent press release between Archlet and TealBook. I engaged with Fabienne and Archlet a few months ago, and what I found was a very, very, very interesting company. I love the approach, I love how nimble they are, and more importantly, I love how they're supporting their customers. So putting out a press release between two companies, when Fabienne and I spoke, we were like, well, maybe we need to tell people what that actually means. And that's kind of the point of the video today. We want to take you through, well, who are Archlet? What do they do? How do they help their customers? I'll briefly talk about TealBook and what we do. And then we'll talk about how the synergy works together and how together we become quite a powerful force in terms of procurement and how we help businesses. So why don't we first get introduced to Fabienne. Fabienne, why don't you give us your background, tell us a bit about yourself, and before we go into the meat of the conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Mo, for the intro and the flowers. I think I blushed a little bit. Hopefully, my makeup is still looking okay. Yeah. Hey, my name is Fabian. For everybody who hasn't spoken to me before, and I look after marketing and procurement here at Archlet. So I have been working in procurement for the last 10 years as a category manager and later on as a consultant on all sorts of procurement topics, from savings to tool selection and implementation. And yeah, at Archlet now, I basically make sure that we have nice partnerships with partners that actually provide an added value to our customers, and that there's a real use case rather than just the fancy marketing speech. So that's my role here, and thanks for having me.
Thanks, Fabian. That's great. And look, I think for anybody who doesn't understand Archlet, why don't you just take us through what it is that Archlet do? I love the rethinking sourcing banner, and I know that you've done a couple of recent webinars that the people will be able to connect to, and we can put that in some of the links. But talk us through it, because it's really interesting.
Yeah, and we put together a quick presentation to do that, which I will share now. But basically, yeah, what we as Archlet do is we empower procurement to make better sourcing decisions faster. And better means that they are more comprehensive, and people have more insights when they have to make decisions. And the faster part is playing on the idea that we automate non-value adding tasks. So that's basically what we're trying to do. And the reason that we decided to use that is, when we looked at existing capabilities out in the market, we realized that a lot of people have simply challenges to analyze their sourcing information. So whenever anybody goes out and collects data in their RFX tool or via email, they usually end up analyzing all of those information and in Excel, copy pasting those information and basically trying to create their own scenarios, which for some people is okay. They are very they're very, very good at dealing with Excel and can create massive spreadsheets and still find their way through them. But as soon as they get to the inclusion of third-party information, that becomes a challenge. And at Archlet, what we promote is basically holistic sourcing decisions. So that's my big topic, because at the end of the day, we have a lot of information in procurement, maybe on the supplier in terms of their quality, their performance, maybe on the market in terms of an index or other benchmarks that we have, but also in terms of sustainability, for example, where we can collect scores, ESG scores, things like that, and want to incorporate them. And then last but not least, also this risk aspect. I think all of those aspects are important, and people are aware that they are important, but they struggle to incorporate them into their decision making. And
it's
I think
trying to pull that together in one place. It's rather than having that's the efficiency piece, but it's also the intelligence that you get from the data, right?
Exactly. So usually it's setting an isolated buckets or tools. Some people obviously can use tools for that, but they often live in isolation, and so either only a selected few have access to them, or if everybody has access to them, then they still don't know how to do that. And especially, I mean, your big topic is supplier diversity, right? And that's something that you guys are famous for. And again, it just adds to this same idea of supplier-based information. How do I now use them in my decision making? And so that's what we're promoting. And so we're basically trying to put all of those into one platform where people can collect their information, analyze them, but then also make their decisions on them and create different scenarios and understand what are my options, what are my trade-offs. And I think the reason why I'm so excited about this partnership is that this data needs to come from somewhere. And I think that's why TealBook is a great partner for us and for our idea of holistic decision making, because that's what you tackle.
That's exactly right. I think, you know, TealBook, the whole context behind it is unifying your supplier data into one area so that you can make much more intelligent decisions, but use your time much more efficiently. Today, strategic procurement is an area where people spend a huge amount of time trying to gather supplier information and supplier data, whether you're looking at that from a sourcing perspective, and you guys are talking about that in terms of sourcing optimization, but the same thing, the same problem occurs for supply management, and you could argue that's an even bigger problem. And then that links into supply risk. Where do I get that information? How do I get it? How do I know the latest and greatest? Is the data that I have today fit for purpose? Is it complete? Is it accurate? Well, that's difficult for procurement to do, and that's the point of TealBook. We have universal supplier profiles, and what that basically means is, as a solution, we gather the data against each supplier profile so that you understand what each supplier has in terms of capability. What do they provide? What can you purchase from them? Where can you purchase it from? What is the contact information on them? What certifications do they have? Are they diverse? Do they have ESG certifications, the ISO certifications? What was their most recent financials? All of that, the kind of information that category managers and in strategic procurement and buyers, you're looking for that all the time, and you usually having to do that manually. You can use Google, you use other sources, you may use other systems that don't provide all of that data. TealBook provides all of it. In addition to that, then, how do you leverage that data? Well, you do that through the ability to discover new suppliers. We have more than 5 million suppliers now, right, that are categorized, that have tags within them, so you know exactly what it is that they can provide. You can search those. We give insights against the spend. How much diverse spend do you have? How much ESG spend do you have? What opportunities do you have to increase spend in those areas, or look for other opportunities to enhance your purchasing power? All of that happens with that data. And then we can integrate it back into different systems. And that's one of the things that obviously we're working on. But today, that already provides value in the relationship that we have. So why don't you talk about how you guys are going to be doing that, leveraging the TealBook information today?
Yeah, I think just before I do that, just one thing that I really find fascinating is that you said it right. Category managers collect this information today. It's not like it's a new idea to collect what's your spend, what are your certificates. Right. But usually we do that in an RFI, and it's a moment in time kind of perspective and evaluation, right? But this idea of making this like basically just a fluid piece of information that gets updated automatically is quite nice. And I think
it's taking the burden away, man. It's like, why do you need to do that in today's technology world where you have that data? Why do you have to do it? I mean,
because the technology hasn't been there, I think, to really support that properly. And I think that's where the beauty comes in. And especially when I think about an RFI, then how most people work is, or like how most strategic sourcing process work is, we do the RFI, we do our shortlisting based on those criteria, and then we go to RFP, RFQ, whatever, right? And I mean, like what we promote is also this, coming back to this idea of holistic decision making, is to not limit yourself and shortlist at all, because there's no need. By having those information available, you can just keep more suppliers throughout the entire process, because analytics become easy and fast. And so therefore you don't have to basically limit yourself to only looking at 3, but you can increase your competition. You can have more suppliers to look at. And then basically look at the trade-offs. And that you talked about the ISO certification, right? Like, how often is that a in or out kind of criterion? If it's out, then you don't know if that supplier has fantastic pricing. If it's in and you can create a scenario around it, and I think that brings us to us, then all of a sudden you know what's the trade-off and how important is it. And if that certificate now costs 25K, but the supplier can save you 2 million, I think that's what you want to know as a procurement manager. You want to know.
Another thing. Yeah, there's another thing though, and it's often when you go and find other suppliers that, they're going to be useful for this particular event, right? What TealBook also does is gives you the information on what else that they provide, but at a really granular level. So one of the big things on CPO's agendas today and CFO agenda is the innovation piece, right? So we need more innovation. Well, the suppliers are going to help you with that innovation, but how do I find out which suppliers can help me innovate? Our data is not only about providing competition to existing categories, but it's also augmenting that conversation to say, hey, actually, the savings on these guys may not be quite as high, but they're going to be able to give you opportunity to do X, Y, Z. That is in addition to what your incumbent cannot do today. So it's data is really powerful, and it's the reason that I moved to TealBook, right? I love what we do with
it. See, and I love thinking holistically, and so this is why we're here. And just this slide, I think we try to pretty it up a bit to simplify the workflow. But basically, I think for customers that use Archlet and TealBook together going forward, I think there's 2 main use cases. So if you think of the sourcing project from start to finish, that happens in Archlet. But as you said, we can now augment the event information in 2 different ways. I think the first one, as you said, the supply discovery, if we want to basically bring in more suppliers that can potentially help us fulfill the demand. But then the second one is all of this information that we just outlined on diversity, risk, ESG, performance, whatever, to feed that into the analytics and the optimization capabilities of Archlet, to really build scenarios, understand the options, and understand the trade-offs before we then go into the negotiation, to have to leverage those pieces of information in that negotiation and come out with better results, basically. So that's I think how the workflow works. And from my perspective, like, this is just, again, the benefits on a slide, so I don't think I have to read through all of them. But just to sum it up, the supply discovery, holistic decisions, scenario modeling in real time, and then this entire idea of transparency on options, on alternatives, on opportunity costs. That's really, really powerful when you combine our 2 solutions. So and that's how we get to the holistic decisions for better and faster outcomes.
Yep, nice and simple. I think that's the way people like it. Although what we're talking about isn't simple, we know. But I think, hopefully you've got to understand why we've partnered with Archlet and vice versa. we really think that this is a way that we can help procurement really drive more value within their own organizations, quicker, faster, better. So if anybody wants to know more, if you want to talk to us, our contact details will be below. You can also connect to us on LinkedIn, etc. as well. And we'd be more than happy to take you through that. And Fabian, again, thank you. I know it's a short one, but it's short and sweet. Yeah, let's continue driving this out, and we'll probably have more content to come as we do more together. So thanks again for your time.
Thank you, Mo, for having me.
No worries, my friend.